I have a confession to make. I'm a terrible business owner. I actually own a cardstock company, and tell me why. I have owned my brand new Eufy Make UV printer for over 2 months now, and I've never once tried printing on my cardstock with this printer. Terrible, right? Well, thankfully yesterday I decided to pull my head out of my booty and do some little test prints with my brand new Eufy Make UV printer and my cardstock found in my cardstock warehouse, and I have some results to show you. The great news is that I can officially say that my cardstock is UV printer approved, but let me show you the results of some of the tests that I've done because the results are pretty shocking. Let's go. I test printed on 4 different types of my cardstock found in my cardstock warehouse. We got some holographic. This stuff is absolutely beautiful. Then we have some plain black cardstock, plain white cardstock, and then also my Sublimation white glitter cardstock. I offered 2 different types of white glitter cardstock in my cardstock warehouse. The Sublimation white has more of a bling than the other one. That's why I chose this one for today's video. So the very first test that I did was going to be on the holographic. I think the results are going to absolutely shock you. I did this in 3 different tests. I'm going to tell you that the CMYK gloss is going to be my favorite of these 3, but let's just start over here at the CMYK only. So this right here is what the finished item will look like. Oh, forgot to note that I will put the picture of the actual image over here just so you can compare between what I have on what I've printed and also what I sent to the printer. So this right here, it looks all right. The reason why it's not as bright is because there's no white that gets laid down before the color. So the background of the holographic is going to get picked up throughout the print. So this right here is what that looks like with just CMYK. Now, if you were to do white in CMYK, what ends up happening is that the white resin goes over that holographic and now you lose the holographic essence. So this is obviously crisper and looks pretty similar to what the actual image is or the original image, but there is no holographic, which is kind of a bummer, right? So then this is going to be my absolute favorite. This is CMYK and gloss. When we flip it over, looks pretty similar to this one right here. However, when you add the gloss over the top of it, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but this one right here just looks a little bit brighter than the one that only has CMYK. Compared to the original image, obviously this one right here that has the white in CMYK is going to be the closest to the original image. But I would say that if you were trying to print on my holographic cardstock, that you would do the CMYK plus gloss setting, this one right here. The next one that I did was going to be on my Sublimation white glitter cardstock. Same 3 settings as before. We have CMYK and gloss, white CMYK, and just CMYK. Again, I think that the CMYK plus gloss is going to be my favorite out of the 3, but you're going to have to decide for me as well. So this is just the CMYK. Remember in previous videos, I said that because our substrate is already white, you don't need a layer of white. And this is a prime example. So this one right here is just CMYK, and this is what the end results look like. Not terrible. You get a lot of that glitter that shines through, pretty similar to the original image, right? This right here is CMYK and white. Well, I guess it's white and then CMYK. So what ends up happening is the printer prints a layer of white resin and then puts the color on top. When you do that, what ends up happening is that you lose a lot or almost all of that pretty glitter texture that's in the cardstock. Now, it is rough and it feels like sandpaper, so you kind of still get that grit feeling, but that shimmeriness that you get with the glitter cardstock loses because of that white resin that gets laid over the top. So then the next one is going to be CMYK and gloss, and this right here is again going to be my favorite. So this right here is just a little bit crisper than just the CMYK. See, do you see that difference right there? I feel like this one right here kind of has like a watercolor texture or a look to it. And then this one right here, actually, you can see And I mean, I feel like the background just pops more doing the gloss on top, CMYK plus the gloss with just the CMYK. This one right here, you also can still pick up some of that glitter texture and that glitteriness. I don't even think that's a word, but you can still see it in this one. So again, this right here is going to be my favorite. All right, the next thing that I tried was just printing on plain white cardstock. So this right here. Now, all three of these are gonna be pretty similar, I feel like. We got just CMYK, CMYK, plus white, and then CMYK plus gloss. Okay, let's start with just the CMYK. Now, because the substrate is white, you don't technically need a white layer of resin because we already have white as our backer. So this right here is going to be just the CMYK. If you compare it to the original image, looks pretty spot on for the original image. Now with CMYK and white, this is what the image looks like. Just a little bit brighter. I would say this is a Pokemon card that I designed of my son, and you can see that there is just a little bit more crispiness like around his jawline versus this one. But the similarities between the two, you're splitting hairs here, okay? Then CMYK and gloss right here, all three of these are going to look very similar. The only difference here is this right here because of that gloss. Now the CMYK and the white both actually dry kind of with a glossy finish. I would say like a satin finish. It's not like a matte finish. You know when you're painting a room and you have gloss paint and then high gloss paint, that's what I would say these ones are. They're not matte by any means, like the finished result is not matte. There is a little bit of shine to it, but when you add that gloss varnish to the top of it, the shine here is like ultra shiny. I actually like this one more just because it gives it more of a finished look. Like if I were to actually hold a real Pokemon card in my hand, you know how it feels really smooth and you know, like all playing cards have that really smooth texture. This is what this feels like with that gloss varnish. You don't feel it with the other ones. They kind of feel like just the CMYK kind of feels like it is one with the paper, like there's nothing on there. And then this one right here just gives it like more of like a high-end feel. I actually ended up switching it up with the black because I really wanted to try out like a tone on tone with the black. So I ended up doing 4 here, and this is not these Pokemon cards right here. Totally switched it up, okay? So I did gloss, white with CMYK, CMYK, and then CMYK with gloss. Again, the CMYK plus gloss is going to be my favorite here. But this right here, let me show you, is just the CMYK. And I did a leopard print because how cool is that, right? It's gonna be kind of hard to see, but this is just CMYK. Yep, still does have a little bit of shine to it because again, it does have a little bit of sheen, but it's not as shiny as just the gloss varnish, okay? Then what I did was CMYK and white in the same type of pattern. And this is what this looks like. Now, I would say that this is not my favorite, and it's going to be a nitpicky situation, but it kind of has a grayish undertone versus this. I don't know if you're gonna see it through the screen. However, in person, this right here is not as a crispy black as the other one. Also, it's going to be hard to see, but around the edges of the actual pattern itself, has a white cast line. It's very thin, but maybe you'll be able to see it, but just know that there is a little white that gets, that is around that. The reason for that is you have to lay the white layer of white and then the layer of black. Because this is such a contrast between 2 colors, white and between 2 blacks, you may be able to see that white line. Now, if you were doing like a red on red or maybe even like a yellow on yellow type of tone on tone, it may not be as hard to see, but definitely because black is such a contrasting color to white, you are going to be able to see that line. Okay, then I am going to skip over my favorite and go over here into the gloss. So the great thing about doing a tone on tone is if you are worried about ink consumption, you could just do CMYK if you wanted to, or you could do just gloss, which is just going to be the glossy varnish. And this is what this looks like. Now I can tell you that this right here looks a lot more of a richer black than this one right here. And obviously this one right here. So I would say it goes like this, okay? When you do just the gloss, this kind of feels like it's one with the paper. You can obviously tell that there's something printed on the top of it, but there's not like any type of feel because there's a very thin layer of paint or varnish or resin onto your paper. So it's really hard to see. So if you were gonna cut this in like, let's say a Cricut or a Silhouette, I would probably do this one right here just because then it's easier for the machine to cut because there isn't a whole lot of ridges. If you're a Cricut crafter, you do know that Cricut's any type of textured cardstock, it is a pain in the butt to cut. But if you have low ink on your paper, you should be good to go. Now this one right here is going to be my favorite, and it's the CMYK Plus Gloss. And this is what this looks like. Compared to all the other three, I would say that the Just Gloss is more of a richer black than the CMYK Plus Gloss. The difference here is that this one right here has texture to it. I don't know if you can hear that, but this right here, just like you can feel it. And I'm thinking like if you had a black, like you wanted to make like a tone on tone black business card, I've seen those high-end business cards where they have just a matte black business card with like lettering over the top of it and a gloss varnish. This right here would be the setting for you just because you could feel it. Like this feels professional versus all the rest of them. But the results I think are great. So I have to ask, which one is your favorite of all of these right here? Now, the reason why I didn't try any type of colored cardstocks is because just like in previous videos that I've explained to you about substrates, if we were to print something on red glitter cardstock, what ends up happening is you're going to have to print a layer of white and then your layer of color in order for your item or your image to be seen. So then you're going to end up getting something that looks like this, where the glitter just goes away and then you're going to have your finished image. Now, if you chose not to, what you would end up having is all that red glitter is going to pop through onto this image. So the darker your substrate is, the lighter your actual image is going to be because it's going to absorb whatever is in the back of here, which would end up making not for a very good comparison video. So that's why I just left with only these 4 different choices. But if you were interested in seeing any other of these, let me know in the comments of this video because I would love to test out some more stuff for you. You know, the crazy part about all of this is it actually really doesn't take that long to do any type of test prints with the UV printer. So why did it take me so long? Good news is I've finally tried it and I can knock it off my list. But now that I have tried it with my cardstock, what I'm most excited about is getting the soft inks with this, because printing the soft inks with my cardstock and then being able to do the metallic foils over on the laminator is going to make the most epic cardstock projects. You're going to want to check back because I have some big ideas coming up. See you on the next one.